All right, episode 2.
Welcome back. Thanks for tuning in for the first episode. We have since made some drastic corrections to how we podcast, and one of those is making sure that our microphones are actually going into the video as opposed to relying solely on the internal microphone of our camera.
Yeah. Shout out to John Brennan.
Thank you for being our honorary Jamie for the day.
Yeah, I guess it wasn't raining, or it was raining, so he wasn't fishing this weekend. He was able to actually help out his buddies.
Yeah, as soon as he gets below tropical weather, he doesn't really go on vacation as much.
Hence the Bearcat, maybe he hibernates. But yeah, shout out to John. Thanks for helping.
Yeah, and, I'm so glad that we actually have. We took a lot of. First of all, I want to thank everyone who tuned in last episode.
Most definitely.
That was huge. Didn't even expect that kind of feedback. Some of the things that you guys said we took into consideration, like I'm not wearing Birkenstocks anymore. Thanks for everyone who made fun of my Christian apparel, my Jesus sneakers, and we're also using mics this time instead of as decorations. They're actually having a function.
Yep.
And I'm not changing my chair.
Yeah, it's all good, man. Your feet touch the floor, and I like my big and tall chair, so let them hate. I enjoy it. You know, I might look like in this chair, if I don't want to use it at a podcast, I could take it to a football game or front yard at a barbecue. I like this chair. Yeah. So all the people that are hating on it, they can suck it. You know, this is Walmart quality, man. This thing was $39.99 of well invested money. So I enjoy it. But thanks for everybody who tuned in last week. And we're going to keep it rolling, keep it moving. And I encourage everybody to like, subscribe, and share, both episodes. So let's dive into it, man.
So we want to talk about a little-known promotion that's rivaling the UFC right about now.
Making some noise.
Making some great moves.
Yes.
Bellator.
Yeah, this weekend was Bellator 207 and 208. They came through and did an event on Friday and Saturday. And they weren't even in the... Well, what Scott Coker said was because the main event on Friday was Matt Mitrione versus Ryan Bader. And then on Saturday, the main event was Chael P. Sonnen, a.k.a. The GOAT, fighting the last Emperor Fedor Emelianenko.
The Great American Dream.
Yes. And he said that... Coker said he wanted to do them 2 days in a row. That way there was no advantage for the opponent. He said he wanted, what he was saying in the post-fight press conference was he didn't want someone to say, well, this guy had, a month extra of rest or any type of advantage. He wanted no excuses. Both guys fought this weekend, and both guys are now in the finals and going to fight each other for the Bellator Heavyweight Championship in January. So,
must be tough to pull off, but...
Yeah,
I think that when Bellator has correct me if I'm wrong, but a less strict USADA drug testing, and they have things that are, their matchmaking is more for fan enjoyment and fairness, and I think that the tournament style itself is brilliant. Brings it back to the original Ultimate Fighting days where there was an actual tournament. I believe it was in one day, which is a bit savage and not too good for people's health.
I'm not a huge fan of that.
No.
I've done that in kickboxing. Fought it in the WK National Tournament in 2012 and 2013, and it's way tougher on your body. I like Bellator's format. It shows who the real, number one guy is. It's earned. It's not given. But I also like their matchmaking. They bring up their fighters. They put on the fights that the fans want to see. I'm a big fan of Bellator.
And I did see some promotional material for the main event on Bellator 208. Unfortunately, I missed 207. I just caught some YouTube and social media content afterwards. But they had a commercial for Chael Sonnen doing what he does best, and that's his gift of gab, the silver tongue, making... Not necessarily. He was tastefully taking shots at Fedor. I think there's an art to selling a fight, trash talking, but still playing within the lines of afterwards. Fedor and Chael hugged it out and just very tasteful trash talk, which looks as like a dichotomy, a contradiction in and of itself, but it's really not.
I'm a big fan of Chael Sonnen. he doesn't always come through in the fights, but he always comes through in the promotion. But like you said, let's keep things in order. Bellator 207 was Friday. Like you said, you didn't get a chance to watch it. You know, I was at home watching it on DAZN, which is awesome that they have it on that. I have it on my Fire Stick at home.
Mm-hmm.
But it was Ryan Bader versus Matt Mitrione, and man, Ryan Bader is looking like a force in Bellator. He's the 205 champ, and he's just been blowing through guys at the heavyweight tournament.
Have you ever seen the Spider-Man cartoons growing up as a kid? Marvel?
Yeah, many years ago.
So the villain in Spider-Man that Ryan Bader is the doppelganger for is the Rhino?
Okay.
I think that with his hair and his new lifting routine, he...
hashtag no USADA.
Yeah, exactly. He is the Rhino from Spider-Man.
He's looking good, man.
I think that his stint in Bellator is much better than when Daniel Cormier and he were trash talking at the Rumble Johnson versus Cormier press conference.
Definitely.
I'm glad that Ryan Bader is kind of the king of the mountain right now. Again, I haven't seen Matt Mitrione fight in quite some time, but
man, Matt Mitrione is the number 1 ranked heavyweight in Bellator, and Ryan Bader won, I believe, every round 10-8. It wasn't even a competitive fight. It was real similar to how your boy Khabib has been just blowing through the competition. I mean, he closed the distance with short combinations, got him to the floor, and just mauled him. Had good leg traps, good wrist rides, and was just pounding his head in. I mean, he rode Matt Mitrione like a horse. You know, it wasn't even a competitive fight, and I was picking Mitrione first round KO. But man,
I don't know if this is true, but the one thing I can think of with Matt Mitrione is either his eyeball almost came out of his head, or he almost knocked somebody else's eyeball out of their head. But there was an orbital fracture in one of these Matt Mitrione fights that was absolutely disgusting. I think it was when he was still in the UFC.
Yeah.
I couldn't tell you who it was against.
I think it was against Travis Brown, but I could be wrong.
And it was disgusting, but at that point in time, I was like, you know what? If you're going to do special effects that are real and not CGI, that's probably the most user-engaging injury. Like, he's just a bad dude. Mm-hmm. I mean, didn't he fight Fedor as well before?
Yeah, I was there for that. It was at Madison Square Garden in New York.
Stop.
It was almost a double KO in the first round. They both landed... Fedor landed a right hand, and I believe it was Mitrione landed a left hand because he's a southpaw. Mm-hmm. Super explosive. I mean, Mitrione used to be in the NFL. He's a former professional football player, so super explosive, and he darts in and out. And that's why I thought that he was going to beat Bader, because Bader fought Lyoto Machida, and when they both push came to shove, and they both used that forward explosive momentum, you know, Machida is very quick and was in and out. And Mitrione is very quick for a heavyweight. He's about quick as a light heavyweight, if not quicker.
Wow. And
he has that one-punch KO power. So I thought Mitrione was going to starch him, but Bader closed the gap, took the fight where he knew he had to, you know, take it to win, and dominated.
And Bader was a great wrestler in college. I couldn't tell you where he went, but I do know he was an All-American, and he was just one of these guys, I think, that never was a champion in the UFC. I think he was ranked at one time third.
He was up there. He was in the top 5 for sure.
But always just a guy that flew on the radar, and I think with Bellator doing a great job of having him shine. Mm-hmm. I can't wait for him. Like, who did he beat the first round after, before?
King Mo. Starched him in under 30 seconds, I believe it was. Starched him with a left hook.
So he's not really taking too much damage.
I think he said in the post-fight press conference I was listening to that so far in this heavyweight tournament, he's been hit with 2 punches. I think that's what he said. Something along those lines. But that must be nice, you know.
Yeah.
He's taken very little damage, and he's just been looking outstanding since the move to Bellator and specifically to heavyweight in this tournament. But, Chael Sonnen hasn't had the same success since moving up to heavyweight. He did beat an older, out-of-shape dad bod, Rampage Jackson.
Hey, there's something to be said about being a father figure.
For sure.
Speaking from experience, because that's kind of, where I'm at in life. But
father or a dad bod?
Just having a father figure.
It's
an
father
advanced
figure.
Dad bod.
Okay.
It's 2018 now.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're taking our duties very seriously with the diet. But no, Rampage Jackson, I think, was the original Anthony Rumble Johnson. You know,
I should see that.
With a little bit more howling and kind of weird behind the scene antics.
Mm-hmm. But that raw KO power.
But his hand just, he would touch people and they'd crumble.
Most definitely.
But speaking of people that crumbled, there used to be a fighter from Miami-Dade County. You might have heard of him on YouTube once or twice. He was really good without using gloves. Kimbo Slice. Mm-hmm. He's dead, I think.
Yeah,
Rest in peace.
Heart attack. Yeah, much respect. I was actually Kimbo Slice was I was a huge fan of his way back in the YouTube days. I remember when he only had a couple of those backyard street fights on YouTube. I was having friends over at my house and I would show him. I was like, look at Kimbo, and we had. That's how I got started. Actually, was watching Kimbo Slice, and we would host backyard boxing matches. Maybe eventually I'll share some of them. There's still a couple floating around. They're hidden on YouTube, but there's a couple floating around I could find and possibly share on the podcast one day. He was definitely an inspiration to get me to start fighting.
He was actually in a Lil Wayne mashup song called Ice Cream Paint Job.
I'm not real familiar.
Trunk hit hard like Kimbo Slice was the line I'm thinking of. So, back in the 2000s, Lil Wayne was the rapper that I was, my choice to listen to. And, I realized that, maybe trunks really do hit hard because Kimbo Slice sure does. And
definitely. But rest in peace, Kimbo Slice.
Yeah,
but speaking of him, Kimbo Slice Jr., a.k.a. Baby Slice.
How old is Baby Slice?
I believe he's 26 years old.
So he's a really old baby.
Younger than me. Yeah.
For being a baby, he's pretty old.
He's identical to Kimbo, though. So they look exactly the same. It's just a mini version. He actually fights at 155 pounds, which is
I know someone else
coincidentally the same weight class that I fight in.
That's what I thought.
Yeah. And I may or may not have been in talks with Bellator a few days ago with their matchmaker, and there's not a whole lot I can announce right now, but I was paying close attention to that fight with Baby Slice, and he looked very good the first 2 minutes, but I think his nickname should be No Gas because that boy tired out quick.
Baby Tank. Baby Gas Tank.
Yeah, he's got a baby gas tank for sure. He's very strong those first 2 minutes. Yeah. I mean, I'm sure we could come up with a lot of...
He might need a pacifier after round one.
Yeah.
And by pacifier, I mean a CPAP tank or something.
Yeah. But, anyway. He looked good early, but as soon as he faced adversity, he faded. And he ended up getting in some bad positions. He got pounded out. He got dropped with a punch in round 2 and then pounded out to a guy that was brought in to lose.
Yeah, who did he fight?
Can't even tell you.
I couldn't tell you either.
And I'm sure when Monday rolls around, nobody will be able to even remember that guy's name either. All I remember is Baby Slice in the fetal position on the ground getting pounded out. So I was a little disappointed.
Fitting to the name.
Yes, I was a little disappointed in that performance. That's a guy that I definitely would like to square off with.
So you'd like to hit a baby? A Baby Slice.
A Baby Slice, not a baby.
Not a real baby, just a 26-year-old baby.
A 26-year-old baby. I would love to fight Baby Slice. I would love for that to be my unannounced Bellator debut.
I think, where is he from? Is he from Miami as well?
Yeah, he's from Miami. He trains at, I think it's called The Body Shop. He trains a really good team, Antonio McKee, and a bunch of great guys. I actually think Chuck Liddell's been training there as well. Speaking of old heads, that inspired me when I was a lot younger.
Was it Kenpo Karate?
Yeah, or that's what Chuck Liddell's background was. But he's training there as well with those guys, and we'll see what the future holds with Baby Slice and Zach Noble. We'll see. There's nothing I can say right now, but hopefully he accepts and we'll move forward.
Yeah, let's get paid here.
Hey man, this is prize fighting.
It's not.
And speaking of
it's
prize
not
fighting,
not prize fighting.
What's that?
It's not prize fighting.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah. But speaking of prize fighting, next weekend there's no UFC, there's no Bellator. Art of War is still roughly 4 weeks away.
4 weeks out.
But there is
November 10th.
An up and coming promotion that I'm also pretty invested in. That is next weekend, and that is Bare Knuckle FC 3.
They've already had 3.
Well, this will be the third event. Yes.
Where are they having that? Because I know the first one made a huge splash on the internet, was on CNN, front page of Reddit. I mean, they just got the word out there like no other.
I believe that the first event, as it was taking place, was the number 2 trending thing on Twitter.
Oh my god!
It was trending higher than Donald Trump for once. So
on Twitter,
yeah, which is crazy.
I'm shocked and in awe.
Yeah, so shout out to Dave Feldman putting in all the work promoting this event and getting it off the ground. But they're having trouble getting it sanctioned. So only a couple states sanction it right now. I know there's been one in Mississippi, and there's talks in Wyoming, and I think there's talks of possibly Florida, Cancun, Mexico. There's a couple things. I know they're primarily taking place on Indian reservations, but yeah, next week is their third event. I know I'm tuning in. It's on Fight TV, FITE TV. Yeah, they spelled fight a little different, but so it's hard to find when I first looked for it. But Fight TV, FIT, it's an app or on your phone, or you can look on a website. I'm probably on my Fire Stick.
I'm probably gonna use a Fire Stick or something because I know autocorrect is not gonna enable me to find it.
Well, I'm definitely gonna be getting it. I'm in fight camp, so I don't know if I can have pizza and wings like I did for previous events. But you're more than welcome to swing through.
I wouldn't want to miss that kind of event because I believe it's for the fans. It's more. I would picture it as more entertaining. I would picture it as healthier for you. I mean, there's some science behind it that, having these gloves, especially, getting all these repeated traumatic events to your brain, like, oh yeah, you might not be cut as bad, but you're getting actually more damage done overall. This is what I've heard. I mean, I've watched a podcast with the Feldman brothers speak on it, and I've done I've had a bit of brain damage myself in the past from getting hit once or twice, and I just realized it'd probably be a lot easier just to get cut and
yeah.
Give it fans they want to see.
When I first heard about it, I was talking to my brother Jake, and when I heard bare knuckle boxing was taken off, at first I was like really hesitant towards it. I was like, why would we go backwards? I felt like we used to fight with no gloves way back. That's why they made gloves. Make it, but then after I watched, and then I saw the highlights. And the highlights, they showed a couple knockouts. They showed some of the bloody fights. But after I watched their second event live, and then after I watched their second event live, I was blown away. It actually favors the more technical fighters.
Okay.
And if you try to throw your punches with full power and full force, you're going to break your hands. So you have to fight more strategic. And
so this would be advantageous to a Nick or Nate Diaz style fighter.
I mean, someone who fights similar to them.
A rangy pop shotter, if you will.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, they have a lot of scar tissue, so they might get split a little easier than someone who doesn't have as much buildup. But it's exciting, man. I really enjoy it. I've become a big fan. And next week is, Arnold Adams versus Sam Shoemaker.
So explain to me a little bit about those guys because, I would consider myself definitely above a casual fan for MMA. Pretty hardcore, but I don't know who they are, and I think that I wanted to learn as much as I possibly can about the promotion leading up to it. So, I mean, what insight do you have on those guys?
Well, Sam Shoemaker seems to be like one of the faces of the promotion right now, at least for the heavyweights. He's like looks like a mountain man. I mean, he's got this big, long, white beard, kind of like a Santa Claus-esque. It might be blonde. I don't know.
Is he a heavyweight?
Yeah, this fight's actually for the first ever heavyweight bare knuckle FC championship.
Does he have the Santa Claus physique?
Not quite. I mean, he's got like the construction worker physique.
Okay.
He's definitely dad bod-ish, but he's still pretty jacked.
Gotcha.
One punch KO power. So they have those machines that tell you how hard you punch. I don't remember exactly what he scored, but when there was the tryouts in Philadelphia where you punch this, and they were doing tests to see who hits the hardest, and he blew everyone out the water that was there, and he wasn't the only heavyweight. So in his first fight for bare knuckle, he starched this guy one punch in the first round, and then his second fight that he had at the second event went the full distance, which was 5 2-minute rounds, and it was a very competitive fight.
So there's 5 2-minute rounds.
And when I asked them about that, because I may or may not, 2 Fridays ago, sat down with a promoter and had a meeting about a potential...
it's all hypothetical at this point.
like, I can't get too into it. But I wouldn't talk about things on social media if there wasn't already things.
Is this why Noble knows?
This might be why Noble knows. They don't call me Mr. Exact for nothing. But back to Shoemaker and Adams. Adams is another heavyweight who's fought on their last couple shows and has been blowing the competition out the water. And I feel like he's the dark horse of the heavyweight division at Bare Knuckle FC. A lot of guys are sleeping him and really promoting Shoemaker a little bit more. And I don't think Adams is getting enough credit. I think Shoemaker is just as bad of a guy that they say he is as far as being an intimidating and skilled fighter. Mm-hmm. But Adams is just as tough. And I'm excited for this fight. I'm not too sure who's going to win. I think that a lot of people are pulling for Shoemaker because he's very easy to promote. Okay. But Adams is not a guy to sleep on.
So, when we're talking about... So, I admittedly have never had a sanctioned boxing match. What are the biggest differences between... You said that there's 5 2-minute rounds.
Yes. Now, that's what I was going to... I'm sorry, that's what I was going to talk about. When I sat down with the promoter and asked, why is it 5 2-minute rounds instead of 3-minute rounds or 3 5? Just different 3 3s or 3, like why 5 2s is basically what I asked.
MMA is 3 5s for a normal bout.
Yes.
And boxing is, was it 12 3s?
For a championship fight. I mean, boxing is either 4, 6, 8, or 12 rounds, and then they're 3 minutes each. It depends on where you're at on the card, skill level, experience, but every Bare Knuckle FC fight is 5 2s. And when I asked him why that is, he said because he only does 2 minutes. That way these guys don't have to worry about their gas tank. They can go full clip for 2 minutes, and then they have a minute to catch their breath, talk to their coaches, go back out there and go. He said because you're not going to get tired of 2 minutes. He said I want the most exciting 2 minutes that you can give, and I want to give it to the fans 5 times in a row.
So this sounds just like it is a fan experience dream.
Dude, it's amazing.
This is what the market wants. This is what the MMA market needs. You know, I feel like too many people are following suit with the UFC strategy of promoting fights, and this seems to be something completely new and fresh. Yeah. And, I mean, it makes sense.
It's different. It's in a big circle ring. And something else they do that Dave Feldman came up with, which I didn't understand at first when he was explaining it, is they call it toe the line. So normally you and I, let's say it's hypothetically a 20-foot cage. You start on that side, I start on this side. They say, you ready, fight. I can circle, run, whatever. You can charge towards me. I mean, we're all the way 20 feet separated at least. In this, they say toe the line. So at the beginning of the fight, there's 2 lines basically a foot apart from each other, and we're standing toe to toe. We're both on each other's line.
Sort of like in a scholastic wrestling.
Yes, it is just like wrestling.
Where they have these lines where if you're not on the line, you get it's a caution.
So these 2-minute rounds start with you guys within arm's reach of each other. So when the bell rings, I can crack you and you can crack me. That's how close we are. Now, obviously, after the bell rings, you can move and go, but it starts where the action's going to be. You start in the pocket.
20 feet as well? Is it the same size of cage or is it smaller?
Well, it's a boxing ring, but it's a circle boxing ring, so it's a little bit harder to corner guys, so you're constantly fighting and going at it. But I don't know the exact dimensions. It looks about, I think it's a little over 20 feet. Okay. It's between 20 and 30 feet. It's not as big as a UFC cage, and it's bigger than the cages that are in regional MMA, like for Art of War. Right. It's a little bit bigger than that, for sure. But it's awesome, man. It's one of the coolest up-and-coming sports, combat sports that's around. I'm a huge fan. Like I said, I didn't see their first event. I only saw the highlights. I had a meeting with the promoter, the first meeting I had with him. Then I ordered the second one live on pay-per-view. And then after that, I went back and ordered the first one and rewatched that. That's how awesome it was. Oh my gosh. And then 2 Fridays ago, I went and sat down with him in Philly.
So I want to draw a comparison, at least from how I look at this. Because for people back at home, they might think that, oh, this is barbaric, this, that, and the other thing. But I want to say NFL football. Mm-hmm. I don't watch much of it. I used to be a football player, played for 7 seasons as a peewee going up through high school and whatnot. And I was always taught, you got this big old helmet on. Your noggin is safe. Lead with your head. Crunch someone. just try and hit them with your head as hard as possible as if you were a ram. And the human body, the physiology does not allow for those types of impacts.
No.
So when I stopped playing football in high school, I finished off my high school career playing rugby, which is very similar but also very different because in rugby focuses on your technique. You don't have pads to rely on thinking that you're some sort of Iron Man, Tony Stark superhero that's somewhat invincible because you have these like effectively sheets of armor on you.
Yeah.
And if you lead with your head, you're gonna probably not like it very much, and you're gonna do way more damage than usual. But in rugby, I think that you experience a lot less of these traumatic injuries that NFL experienced. And now they've tailored the game in NFL so much that I don't consider it to be the same sport. Mm-hmm. It's almost like, oh, you tackled the quarterback, flag, can't do that. Oh, you used your helmet to tackle, flag, you can't do that. So what we're seeing is an entirely different game, whereas rugby hasn't changed for centuries.
Yeah.
And the way that I view the analogous to the football versus rugby is boxing versus bare knuckle. After hearing what you told me, it seems like this is how fighting was originally meant to be. This is how it will be. And I always thought rugby was more fun to play. Mm-hmm. But again, NFL has more marketing dollars. It's not that way across the world. But what I basically foresee happening is that the possibilities for this to expand are great. It's the way that nature intended these fights to be. And ain't nobody going to be thinking that they're Iron Man with elk gloves on. It's going to be... I'm just so excited that we're getting a sport that's just so different and makes more sense.
Well, there's always going to be outliers. You're always going to have those guys that have one-punch knockout power.
Correct.
That can just close their eyes, duck their head, swing that Hail Mary shot and win. Very similar to how Sam Shoemaker won his first fight in Bare Knuckle FC. That dude came out, just threw one overhand, and the first punch he landed, the first punch that connected, completely starched, and the dude fell face down and embarrassed that he fought. But then you get guys like UFC veteran Kendall Grove, who's also fighting next week. He's having his second Bare Knuckle FC fight.
I've heard that name before. Is he a Hawaiian?
Yeah, he's Hawaiian. He's fought on... He was the Ultimate Fighter season, I want to say 3 winner. He was on Team Ortiz. He fought Ed Herman. Mm-hmm. This is old school. But he fought Ed Herman on, I believe it's season 3, The Ultimate Fighter. He was the winner of that. And so long-time UFC veteran. He also fought for Bellator. Since then, he hasn't been extremely active these last couple of years. Mm-hmm. But now he's fighting for Bare Knuckle FC. And he's kind of having a career resurgence. And the way that he's fighting, the way that he fought at their last event back in August, the way Bare Knuckle FC is, it really favors the more technical guys. The guys that aren't just going to go out there and flail and swing wild. Now, like I said, you can do that, but it's a higher risk-reward ratio. Whereas you're going to risk hitting the top of the head with that bare fist. And these things aren't meant for punching.
Right.
They're really not. These are tools. We're meant to work tools. We're not meant to just swing this. There's a lot of tiny bones it's going to break. So if you're going to use it, you have to be technical, pick your shots, and it favors the more technical strikers.
So that sort of goes back to one of the great senseis, Bas Rutten.
El Guapo.
What's that?
That's his nickname, El Guapo. Bas Rutten. Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
It's a legend.
I forget what El Guapo means, but I'm pretty sure it has something to do with physical appearance. And
I'm not 100% sure.
I just know. I don't speak that language. I speak English pretty much, and I try to speak French, but it doesn't work that well. But didn't he do a lot of open palm strikes back in the days where you didn't have gloves, and the logic behind that was so that you wouldn't break your hands?
Well, he fought for Pancrase in Japan, and Pancrase was like a hybrid type of fighting before the UFC and mixed martial arts really took off. I believe the UFC was still going on around that time, but it was at a lot smaller scale, back more in the Hoist Gracie type days.
Okay.
Bas Rutten was actually the first UFC heavyweight champion. So, But before he fought Kevin Randleman, very controversial, old school fight. A long time fan and junkie, but I'm a big fan of Bas Rutten. I watched a lot of his Pancrase fights back in the day, and Pancrase was open palm strikes. There was no closed fist. They were actually not allowed. So you can open palm strike, you could kick, you could knee. There were takedowns, and then I believe if you were on the ground, it was like for a limited amount of time. It wasn't like you could take a guy down and stay there. It was But yeah, there was no closed fist. But what he did was he was an innovator. So while all these guys were just basically bitch slapping each other like they were Nate Diaz, that he was pulling his hands back and striking with his
his wrist almost.
Yeah, like his wrist, because it's
You're saying about Bas Rutten.
Basically, Bas Rutten is a pioneer for the sport. Developed that palm striking style for Pancrase, and yeah, the guy's a legend, man. And I'm sure if he was around, or if Bare Knuckle FC was around back then, I think that Bas Rutten, instead of hitting everyone with his fist, risking breaking his hands, he'd probably just be palm striking the shit out of everybody.
Man slapping.
Yeah, man. Manly as they get.
Instead of bitch slapping.
Yeah, but...
but he was, correct me if I'm wrong, he was Dwayne Ludwig's sensei.
Yeah.
And ipso facto TJ Dillashaw's sensei. And he could be accredited why, the 135-pound belt's where it's at. I mean, ipso facto.
Yeah, it's a long lineage, but yeah, I'd say so.
So who else on the Bare Knuckle fighting championship fight card should I know about? Should I be privy to if I'm,
There's a UFC and Bellator veteran, Kendall Grove. He was a Ultimate Fighter Season 3 winner. He was on Team Ortiz. This is his second fight for Bare Knuckle FC. His first fight was really exciting. Picked the guy apart for 5 rounds, dropped him in. It was either the 4th or the 5th. So he's having his second fight for Bare Knuckle FC. So that should be good. He's a tall, rangy striker.
Okay.
Really long reach. Also on the card is making his Bare Knuckle FC debut is Joe Diesel Riggs. He used to fight in the UFC and fought for Bellator as well. He had a bare knuckle street fight with Nick Diaz after their fight in the UFC. They had a fight and they were both hospitalized, and it was a split decision that Joe Riggs won, and Nick Diaz was really pissed off, I guess, about the decision. So then they fought again in the hospital that night. I wish smartphones were around back then, but fortunately they weren't.
Hospitals are primarily staffed by attractive women, nurses. Not all women, but I could see why Nick Diaz would have the extra surge of testosterone to just get the let out in the hospital. It's a good. I mean, if I was Vince McMahon in WWE era, hospital's a perfect stage for it. One of those scripted
hardcore
fights.
matches.
Yeah, hardcore matches. But if it's real life, no maestro is better for impromptu violence than the Diaz brothers. I think that they picked the right setting for that post-fight brawl, and good job, Nick Diaz. I would never want to fight you, especially not in sticky socks and a fucking gown.
Not in a gown with the back open.
The Diaz brothers would be perfect bullies in high school. I could just imagine him. The high school fighting move of everyone's favorite choice is to pull a shirt and rip it over your head. But if you're wearing a hospital gown and you have that happen, then you're just completely embarrassed, literally bare-assed. So
yeah, I
Joe
don't know
Riggs, you won the battle, bud, but probably didn't win the war because I didn't know who you were, and I mean I'm a pretty big fan, and not to insult him.
No, yeah, old school guy. He's a stud though. He's one of those guys that have always been floating towards the top, but then never quite made it mainstream.
What year do you think that fight was?
I would say early 2000s, early to mid 2000s.
So when Nelly was still relevant as a rapper.
Yeah, he still had the Band-Aid on when that fight was going on.
Yeah, he healed since then.
Yeah, maybe he was at the same hospital.
He probably didn't fight Nick Diaz, or else he'd still have the Band-Aid on. I would guess, but here nor there. So that's the Bare Knuckle Fighting Championship lineup.
Yeah, next week, so October 20th.
I can't wait. I'm glad I know a little bit more about what's going on, a bit more informed, but as far as, that's the Bare Knuckle. We talked about Bellator. The one that we didn't talk about too much yet is what's going on with the UFC. I mean, we just came off this high of the highest grossing pay-per-view in the UFC history by a lot. I don't know if I shared it with you yet. I might have, I might not have. But probably, I probably didn't know me. But I saw an Instagram meme of the top 6 highest grossing by pay-per-view buys UFC cards, and 5 out of the 6 were Conor McGregor. The only one that didn't have him on was Brock Lesnar versus Frank Mir in UFC 100. And the most recent, and the thing I find very interesting about that is the number 6 in the top 6 was Jose Aldo. I believe it was UFC 89 or 92. It was sub 200. It was one of those. And that grossed a total of 1.2 million. My math isn't too hot right now. 1.2 million.
Been a long day.
Yeah, it's been a long day. As you can tell, we grew up playing, and it got dark outside. That's how long we've been podcasting. So, and it's,
yet again,
this is my actually 6th La Croix. I had to crack it open during this episode. But shit, what was I saying? Oh, yeah. So Jose Aldo, 1.2 million buys. Habib, which is the most recent one, 229, 2.4 million. So they doubled. And the next closest UFC buy was McGregor Diaz 2, which was at 1.68 million.
Yeah.
So 50% increase with Habib, Kebab, Team Habib, big fan of him, the Eagle, the Bear. And I think part of it is just how easy it is to sell fights against Russia. They've been one of the greatest antagonists of all time. I mean, Ivan Drago and Rocky IV, the Cold War, Ronald Reagan versus, it wasn't Putin at the time, but was one of those guys who he claimed to be a dictator. Trump and Putin right now, the U.S. election versus Russia. That's another big fight.
I mean, it's safe to say that Russia's known for their rivalries.
Yeah, don't invade them during the wintertime. Napoleon learned that.
Yeah,
I believe
just
that.
stay clear.
Yeah, that's why Napoleon lost. So yeah, Russia's tough, and I guess the whole point is what's next, and what do you say? Like, how do you go from such a heated rivalry of Habib versus McGregor, which I would draw the comparison of that being kind of similar to Christopher Nolan's Dark Knight. I mean, it was the greatest of its kind. Dark Knight was the best superhero movie of all time. If someone wants to argue with me there, great. Let's come at me.
I probably agree.
Good. We don't have to fight about that one.
I don't want no problems.
But I would say that just the entire era of UFC 229 with, shite on the bus, with throwing a dolly through the bus, all the lead up, all the build up, the trash talk was super personal, super dark. And then Habib flying like an eagle and just jump kicking Dylan Dennis in the mouth. Using the heel of his foot on his frosted tips, top of his head. Like it was just an intense night. It was pretty grim. And then for, what's UFC 230? That's what, November 3rd?
I think the only way you can almost top UFC 229 is having a return of the Black Beast for a little action, little black on black crime action against the champ himself, Daniel Cormier. They announced that. So quick turnaround for the Black Beast. I mean, 3 weeks, 4 weeks.
Yeah.
3 weeks from now.
Something
So 4
like
weeks
that.
from his last fight, something like that.
It's not a long camp.
Not at all. I mean, he wasn't even in shape for his last fight, so hopefully he got right back in the
I don't think he's
gym.
ever been in shape for any fights.
Yeah, I don't know. But, I mean, he's always one punch away from winning. But, yeah, he's taken on Daniel Cormier. Cormier's been really open about having a broken right hand or an injured right hand, broke it off Stipe's melon. So, it's a high-risk fight for both guys. Skill-wise, Cormier's got it, I think, in the bag. But it's a high risk. If he loses this fight, man, he misses out on that super fight against Brock Lesnar, and that's a huge payday. But I have a feeling that he's getting a big payday for stepping up on short notice, because 230 is in need of a main event.
And a couple things I want to address about that is, as far as, we talk about skills, and yeah, Daniel Cormier's got more of them. He had more tools in the tool belt than Derek Lewis. But who has more Instagram followers? That's my real question. Because Derek Lewis on Instagram, he is a master content marketer. He had a string of Photoshop memes describing what he'd do to Ronda Rousey for a while, leading up to the Travis Brown fight, which I thought to be ingenious. He's got entire soundbite clips that have become songs that are borderline viral. His most famous one-liner was "My balls is hot."
Yeah. Famous.
10 out of 10 can relate to every UFC fan, almost every UFC fan, because we're primarily males and typically we do activities where our balls also get hot. So Gold Bond stock is probably through the roof for that guy.
Yeah.
He's just doing a great job of self-promoting, and I think it's really proving that fighting isn't just about who's the greatest martial artist. It's who's the greatest mixed marketing martial artist.
Yeah, man.
And, that's why Curtis Blades and Stipe Miocic aren't getting the next title shots. That's why Derek's
and what? Stipe and Blades are the two top guys. No, I don't think anyone's more deserving of either of those guys for a title fight, but Derek Lewis is the one getting it. I think part of it is because he does have such a big fan following, and the other part of it is it's a low-risk, skill-wise fight for Daniel Cormier, and that's why he's willing to step up. But there's always that it factor. The same it factor that with Conor and Khabib. Khabib is definitely the better fighter, but Conor, we all fell for the... he's one punch away from winning at all times, and Derek Lewis proved that. I mean, he was getting his butt whipped by Volkov, 2 weeks ago or 1 or 2 weeks ago, and man, one punch...
For about 14 minutes and 11 and 59 seconds or something it was.
Yeah, something along those lines.
Yeah,
but,
my math's not too hot right now, but it's somewhat sort of.
There was about 11 or 10 seconds left, and he slept him. So I think he's banking on landing that right hand against Cormier, but I think he's biting off more than he can chew. I think Cormier's got this one in the bag.
And the one thing I'm very happy about with this matchup, Zach, and it's so different than others, is they genuinely probably respect and like each other. But the one thing that gets under Derek Lewis's skin is just the lack of respect that Daniel Cormier put on Popeye's Chicken's name.
With his music video.
Yeah, he is not happy. And I get it. I mean, I'm a fried chicken fan myself. Team Royal Farms right here. If I had to get fried chicken anyway.
They have some good chicken.
Oh, I love me some Royal Farms, but I would never just disrespect Popeye's Chicken, especially to Derek Lewis. He's just he's a guy who knows what he wants.
Yeah.
I mean, they're both from the South. The other thing is, too, there's a state rivalry. Derek Lewis is a Houston boy, and Daniel Cormier is Louisiana.
Yeah.
Bayou
Lafayette.
boy. Yeah, I don't really know where Lafayette is, but it sounds
It's in Louisiana.
It is. It is. It's not New Orleans. It's a different city. But, good for them.
Yeah.
I don't know who else is on the card. I don't really...
It's a stacked card. It's stacked with a bunch of middleweights.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's one worth tuning into. But as far as fights that have been announced, so that's the big one. And the other huge fight that was announced was John Jones versus Alexander Gustafsson 2, the rematch. And Dana White said that as soon as the first punch is thrown, that Cormier will be stripped of the title, and it's for the official belt. So
good.
Yeah, I'm not sure what to expect with that one, man. I think that a lot of people are saying Jones with the time off and the rust and all that, but not a lot of people know. But Jones has fought more recent than Gus. Gus has been out for a while.
Who did Gus even fight last?
The last fight I remember his was against Glover Teixeira, but I'm not 100% sure. He could have fought one since then as well. But he's pulled out of his last 2 fights with injuries, so who knows how serious those injuries are and if he's going to be healed up to 100% to fight Jones. Because that first fight was a dog fight. It was a split decision. They were both bloody and battered. I'm hoping it's just like that again, because that was one of the most entertaining fights I've ever seen. They're saying it's the greatest light heavyweight fight of all time, which I agree with. But I think that Jones has this one. I think he's going to put him away. I think he's got something to prove, and he's going to end it within 3 rounds.
I think that John Jones, more than anybody else on December 29th, will be the hungriest person, and he's been through so much hell with cocaine, PED allegations, hit and run, this, that, the other thing. Daniel Cormier, coming at him on social media with their whole feud, that he's probably just ready to stop talking and go back to doing what he's the best at in the whole world in fighting. The only people that have ever beaten John Jones, there's only two people. The first one is John Jones himself, and the second one is Matt Hamill's the back of his head. If he didn't have a back of his head, and that wasn't a rule, John Jones would have never lost.
12 to 6 elbows.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if like Matt Hamill would have exorcised, and that would have been like the front of his head, he would have fucking died. It would have been over.
Mm-hmm.
But instead, he gave the back of his head, and John Jones' illegal move. But I think that, other than Alexander Gustafsson, what was the last close John Jones fight? I don't know if there's any. I wouldn't argue Daniel Cormier was a close fight.
I mean,
Vince St. Preux?
The OSP fight, he didn't look great. But that camp is when he did a whole bunch of powerlifting, came back pretty jacked, but looked a little slow. And then the Cormier rematch, some people say that Cormier was winning before he got caught with that head kick. I don't know if he was winning, but it was a real competitive fight up until then. But I just think Jones is a man on a mission. He's going to put him out. That's my prediction.
I don't know who else is on that card, but I would pay price of admission just for that fight.
Yeah, I will too.
Yeah, I saw John Jones, and I was in Arugas, 2010, I believe, when he beat Rashad Evans.
Yeah, man.
And that was quite
It was a good performance, man.
Quite a show. Which I guess leads us to, the one person that I was looking forward to watching for UFC 230.
Yeah.
Who, for lack of better words, he's AWOL. No one knows. He's absent without leave. We don't know what he's going to do. Mm-hmm. And that's Nate Diaz.
Yeah.
So
it's unfortunate.
The reality is that we got a guy who everyone wants to see. He is the second and third highest grossing pay-per-view star. I mean, other than Conor McGregor. Mm-hmm. And now probably Khabib, but who has greater star potential than Nate Diaz?
Yeah, I don't know. But so to fill people in, he was slated to fight Dustin Poirier, UFC 230 in the co-main event. Poirier pulled out with an injury, and then Dana White said Diaz is off the card. And now Diaz is saying that he wants to. One day he's tweeting he wants to fight Khabib. The next day he's saying just release me. It'll be better that way. I mean, the guy's all over the place. Everybody just wants to see him fight. I'm not sure what's next. I think ideally the Khabib fight isn't going to happen because the allegations with Khabib is still pending as far as hopping over the fence and him being in trouble with Nevada. So I'm not 100% sure what's next for Khabib and how long he's going to be out. And I doubt that Nate would be the next guy to fight him. I think they're going to save Khabib for Conor.
That's who I would have liked to see fight, and I'll just give you a quick summary of why. Mm-hmm. First of all, I think that there would be similar trash talk, but it would be entirely different than how McGregor trash talks. Because again, Nate's kind of like a bully, like a high school bully, but he's not the most. He keeps it real. It's not when he's trash talking. It's not like he's doing it for show. It's like he's doing it because
it's who he is. Yeah,
it's who he is. And Khabib is very respectful. And I don't know. I don't think he'd probably get too offended because I don't believe Nate's gonna say more things than making fun of his wig or his crappy English.
Yeah,
which.
Khabib's, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Khabib's English isn't the best, but that's okay.
Do you think that would be a competitive fight, though? Nate and Khabib?
So here's why I think it would be a great competitive fight and challenge for Khabib, because when you look at the things that Conor McGregor sucks at, and not to suck at, but is not relatively nearly as good as Nate Diaz, it's, one, being 6'1". Mm-hmm. Nate's much taller than Conor and has got a longer reach, so I think that'll give him an advantage where Khabib was taller than Conor. So that's one thing, is the reach advantage that Nate would have. The second one is cardio. I mean,
he definitely has better cardio than Conor.
Nate's gas tank will not quit. Mm-hmm. And the third thing is jiu-jitsu, where Nate's actually a black belt in jiu-jitsu. And instead of rolling your belly and getting choked unconscious, or not unconscious, but getting RNC'd, which is how Conor loses, against Joe Duffy, against Nate Diaz, and against Khabib. Mm-hmm. Same way. I believe that Nate would just use probably good fundamental jiu-jitsu and might actually stand a chance in the mat. and I think he'd have an advantage on the feet. So that's where I'm at.
Yeah.
Plus, the UFC knows that other than having a guy named Conor McGregor in a card, that those two right now have the best star power. So look at it from a financial standpoint of them being like, okay, great, our numbers for the year are way down. How do we make this up?
Yeah. I think that Nate would put up a better fight than Conor, but I think ultimately Khabib would smash him too. The fight that I want to see, the fight that's actually been a dream fight of mine for a couple of years, and the fight that I'm hoping they make is El Kukui, Tony Ferguson versus Nate Diaz. I feel like they're both black belts in jiu-jitsu. They both have incredible endurance. They both have extreme heart and desire to win. I feel like El Kukui has a few more tools on the feet. I'm not saying he's necessarily a better striker, but he brings more to the table. He uses his elbows, his knees, his kicks, whereas Nate's primarily a boxer and a slapper. But I think that would be an exciting fight, and that one, I'm not sure who would win that one. I maybe slightly lean toward Diaz, but at the same time, you can't really ever count Tony out.
Yeah, he's on an 11-fight win streak, so...
Yeah, against tough competition, so that's my dream fight. I'm hoping that that's the fight they put together. I think it would be huge, and I think that's one that would get Nate excited. I mean, if Nate was willing to fight Poirier, who also was on a roll and an exciting fighter, but Ferguson's a number one guy, and I feel like if you fight Ferguson, who's ranked number one, and you take him out, you take his spot, obviously, and now you're right in line to get that money fight with Khabib. Or if Khabib's gone and really doesn't come back or whatever happens with him, then that rematch with Conor's right there. It's a win-win if you fight, if you beat Tony.
And Tony, he was given a belt and never lost that belt.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, man. He lost to a cable wire. So.
He lost to his ACL, which he rehabbed himself, which is incredible. But the other thing about the Tony Ferguson versus Nate Diaz fight, and I don't know how, if ever, and I could be completely off base, but guys, forgive me if I'm wrong, but aren't they both Mexican?
Yeah, I do believe so.
That makes for a very interesting...
Mexicans are tough, man.
I think the other thing is maybe they're you would know better than me, but are they like friends?
I don't think Nate Diaz is friends with anybody that doesn't train with him.
That's a very stupid question to me. I probably shouldn't have known that.
I remember seeing an interview, man, like at least a year after Nate Diaz beat Kurt Pellegrino.
Okay.
He beat him by triangle choke, this one where he was like flipping off the cameras and all that. It was like maybe a year later, Nate Diaz fought somebody else. It was backstage. He just won. They were interviewing him. And Pellegrino just happened to be like walking past, and Nate stops mid-sentence and just eyes him up. He already beat the guy, just eyes him, and then I think Karen Bryant was interviewing, but it could have been someone else. They're like, what was that about? And he's like, man, F that guy, man. He's like, I don't like anybody that I fought. And it was something along those lines. But, yeah, I mean, he's just tough guy.
Cold-blooded.
Yeah, if you don't train with him, you're against him. And, hey, man, everybody walks up to their own drum, I guess.
To each their own.
But
this is not fake.
So I'm hoping we got some good news with Nate Diaz soon, but we'll see. I think that's all that they've announced as far as, big fights, and everyone's waiting to hear what's next for Nate. It's a bummer he's off 230, but Lewis in DC is in my opinion, not as good as a replacement, but it's still.
It's gonna be entertaining.
It's gonna be worth tuning in.
It's gonna be way worth it. So, speaking of. Next on the schedule for very important organizations, let's talk about what's next for Stocky Talk. I mean, we just wrapping up episode 2. I would say that we're slowly crawling out of Struggle City, but it's definitely a slippery slope. It's kind of like
it's been slippery, man.
It almost feels like if you ever go slip and sliding in the summertime, where you either have like a tarp with like either water or jelly or something, and, it's really smooth. But like sometimes people are sick and like don't make the whole thing like lubricated. So at the end, like we're going smooth, then we hit a patch where like my stomach hair will just fall off and I'll feel like I lose a lot of skin. That is how I feel like today went. Like I mean,
me too.
This is for you guys back home. I'll let the cat out of the bag. It's dark out now. We got a plant, and we got about half of our podcast, over half, 2/3 of our podcast corrupted. Because I can't figure out how to power a camera. So, I mean, no shame in my game. It's a learning process, humility. But the next steps are on Tuesday, we'll be getting a nice AC/DC, Dirty D, Done Dirt Cheap adapter where we'll plug it into the wall and the camera.
So we don't have to spend...
Correct.
almost a whole day doing a podcast.
Yeah.
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 But hey, there's going to be growing pains, and we appreciate everybody's feedback.
Oh my gosh. And
we've gotten mostly positive feedback, and yeah, I appreciate all of it. We're going to keep cranking them out, and it's going to be a slow climb, but this shit ain't easy, man. And we're gonna keep improving, keep getting better. Just keep tuning in, and we'll keep pumping out content.
And I'm just so thankful for everyone that's already watched. We got 150 views right now on our first one, and thanks to everyone that watched that and subscribed and liked it. I know I subscribed about 5 times my throwaway account, so trying to bump those numbers up. But only half joking there. So yeah, I guess
it's fun, man. I'm having fun. We're avid podcast listeners, and it's exciting to do one on our own and see what it's all about. But it's definitely not easy.
And one thing I want to address too is a lot of people reach out to myself, probably got to you, Zach, as well, and said, "Hey, when can I be in your podcast? When are you having guests?" And the answer is very simple.
We only got 2 chairs.
We got 2 chairs with 2 mics. So if you want to be on the show, when we can figure out, praise God or whatever you want to say, how to get a call in, we'll have we can call you in, but
we got a ways to go before we're ready to have guests. So be patient with us. Right now it's going to be old Stocky and Zach Noble over here, and
if we do have guests, if you're someone out there listening that says, "Man, I don't know squat about MMA," great. We can probably talk about something that's not MMA. Or if you're a fellow MMA fighter that knows a lot more about it than I do, and you're pretty good at talking, maybe you can talk to Zach at some point. But right now, we're talking about MMA. It's us two, and that's gonna be that. So, I just want to say thanks to everybody for listening. Give us a like, share our content, text me, or send a comment or reach out and say, "Here's what I'd like to see." Give some feedback, and just want to say thanks. And
for sure, appreciate everything.
Yeah.
All right.
Us.
Switch the old battery out.
Just had to switch the old battery after about an hour of filming. Much better than our half-hour filming last time. Thanks for taking care of that problem for us, Jamie, aka John Brennan.
The Bearcat.
Bearcat. So we were talking about why you think Khabib and Tony Ferguson should fight.
No, won't happen.
Won't happen.
Yeah. So the reason I think that Khabib and Tony is next the reason I think that Nate Diaz and Tony is next is because we don't know what's going on with Khabib after all that melee post-fight at UFC 229. So Khabib might be under some sort of suspension. It's all kind of up in the air, under review right now by the Athletic Commission in Vegas. So I don't know what's going on with them. So let's just say hypothetically we take Conor and Khabib out of the picture because we don't know what's going on with them.
Correct.
And so we're left with Nate Diaz with no opponent and the number 1 contender, the number 1 ranked fighter in the lightweight division, Tony Ferguson. So that's what I think is next. But then as a fight fan, that's what I want to see anyway. That's the fight I want to see. I think that Tony brings a lot more weapons. He's a little bit more... He has definitely more wrestling than Nate does. They're both black belts in jiu-jitsu. They both have long reach. They're both tall.
They're both... I don't want to say this with too much confidence, but are they both Mexican? Is that what their heritage is? I know. Well, Kukui's pretty crazy and he can't speak Spanish, but...
I think he can speak Spanish. He's
No hablo Español?
I believe they're both Mexican descent.
Okay,
yeah.
that's fair to say. Good.
But which also, Mexican on Mexican crime, man, that makes for a barn burner. I think Tony's a little bit more well-versed with the strikes. He's got, not calling him a better striker, but he has more tools. Yeah, he's got more tools in his tool belt.
His stance switching is a lot different than Nate's,
Yeah. I mean, Nate's got punches and slaps. Punches and slaps. Yeah. Whereas Kukui's got, punches, elbows, knees, kicks.
Spinning stuff.
A lot more. I've never seen Nate spin, So Tony brings more weapons to the table as far as on the feet goes. But you can never count Nate Diaz out, you know, and Nate's one of those guys that won't give up. He always pushes the pace, and they both have endless gas tanks. If they make this fight, man, it has to be a 5-round main event.
They have the most gas of anyone in the UFC.
They have more gas than Derek Lewis and Baby Slice combined by far.
Each one.
Yeah.
Time, you know.
Times 100.
Times 100.
Them two guys got no gas. These guys got all the gas.
It's the reverse.
Yeah.
So the other thing is, how well can they talk and sell? El Kukui does such a good job of talking, of making me like him less when he talks, which is interesting. Like,
I don't get it.
He's a smart guy, but he's insane. And Nate Diaz is not necessarily the best at reading good, but he's really, really good at keeping it real.
Yeah.
And he speaks the truth, and he doesn't give up heck
No.
about really much. So I think that the way that they both speak will just make for incredible pre-fight build-up.
I think it would be the best bad shit talk.
I would
that too, man. That's it. I didn't even think about that.
Real.
That's another reason why I want to see it.
It would be just so entertaining.
They both have such an interesting perspective on shit talk.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Tony's is very cringy,
and
Nate's is very like 9th grade school bus.
He would have been the best bully at any high school.
I'm sure. Yeah, man, that's just another reason why I want to see that fight now.
You know, Nate's got his grade 9 and El Kukui's got his PhD. It's totally different because, you know, one's street smart, one's maybe book smart. I don't know if that's real.
El Kukui's a smart dude.
I think he's really smart.
Anyone who could come back in that short amount of time from that type of... And on his own. He went to a physical therapist for his recovery, and he didn't like how the guy shook his hand. He said, the equipment you have, I have the same equipment and more in my home gym that I made myself. He's like, I'm just going to do it on my own. Thanks anyway. And then came back in less than 6 months and took out a former world champion, Anthony Pettis, in dominating fashion. I mean, it was a close competitive fight until...
Right, because styles make matchups, but...
Yeah. And, but yeah, so my dream fight for what they do with Nate Diaz would be... Because the Conor... Nate 3 fight, that's not going anywhere. They could both lose and win their next 10 fights. You know, that fight could be 10 years from now. It doesn't matter. That fight's never going away. It'll always sell. It'll always be a draw. Nate could lose his next 10 fights, and Conor could win his next 10. People are still going to want to see that fight. Even if they say they don't, they're still going to tune in to see that. I know I will. But, and like I said, we don't know what's going on with Khabib right now, because not just what happened in the post-fight, but now he's saying if you don't bring his teammate or his brother back in the UFC, the guy who jumped in and socked Conor and Dana cut him, he's saying if you don't bring him back, then I'm not coming back. So who the hell knows what's...
Said $2 million to go to Bellator. Yeah. So you got to put Bellator in the mix for Khabib, so...
Shout outs to Bellator and 50 Cent, man.
Shout out to Vitamin Water, dude.
Yeah.
That Vitamin Water money.
Yeah, right.
Come on over to the dark side, a.k.a. Bellator.
Yeah, 50 Cent's finding a way to stay relevant in MMA. Now.
So... With that note, I like to give my last 50 cents to kind of say thank you to everyone that's watched episode 1, already subscribed to our channel.
Yeah.
If you aren't already subscribed, you probably should. It's good for your long-term health and well-being.
Please like, subscribe,
share with your friends. I know that we're talking about MMA. It's not for everybody, but for those of you that do like MMA,
there's a lot of people out there.
There's a lot of people out there that do like that, and share it amongst your MMA liking friends.
And keep giving us feedback, even if it's positive, negative. We want to make this better for everybody tuning in.
Right.
We made a few adjustments on, and
we're gonna on microphones working versus not working.
Just everything, organization of going, just a lot of things, man. We're working our butts off, and it's gonna be. It's like fighting. You're not gonna go in there in your first fight look like crap and your next fight look like a world champion, but you can get better as long as you get back in the gym and train.
Yep.
And that's kind of what we're doing. We're taking our positive and negative feedback, and we're looking to get better and improve, and hopefully every week our podcast continues to get better.
Yeah, and we can't do it without people at home giving us feedback and liking our shit. So
keep liking,
keep on
subscribing, sharing, and keep the feedback coming, and keep tuning in, because it's only gonna continue to get better for sure. And there's a lot of fights coming up. Like I said, we had UFC 2 weeks ago,
Yep.
Bellator this week, bare knuckle the following week. There's more UFCs coming up.
Art of War November 10th.
Yeah, November 10th. Myself and a bunch of guys from Gracie 717 will be on the card. So we'll be covering some regional MMA, mainstream MMA, news, rumors, fight announcements, everything, man. We're just looking to continue to keep pumping out content. And if there's anything you guys want to see or hear us talk about, man, just shoot us a message or comment on our Instagram or our YouTube videos and let us know what you want to see or hear us talk about. Or guests, there's some guests out there that we would be interested. The thing that Ross and I were talking about with guests, because we're getting a lot of people that are like, oh, have me on the show. I want to talk about MMA. Now, listen, everybody wants to talk about MMA, but if we're going to have guests on, we want to have guests that are going to, bring views and eyes to the table. I've talked to a couple other professional fighters that we're looking to possibly have on. Nobody I can announce right now. Also some promoters that I've talked to that we would have on. And, there's some big name guys, other guys that Ross knows as well. So, but we're not going to have on just anybody. Ross and I are going to be the main two guys on the podcast, but we definitely will have guests on future shows.
If you're a person out there watching that wants to be on the podcast, talk about something non-MMA related, we can talk. But as far as MMA related goes, we're going to do some serious vetting, and it's like when you're managing a career. You're not just going to be fighting anybody. Hey, you
got to manage it correctly. You got to be smart if you want to be successful.
Yeah, I've got a pink belt in Taekwondo. You want to fight me in a pro fight? I'll pay you $100.
Yeah.
No, probably not. Probably not going to do much to help you out. So, anyone that practices Rex Kwon Do, shout out to the Napoleon Dynamite movie. Don't offer to fight Zach, but if you want to talk about talking to babes all day on the internet, that'd be pretty sweet. So. Bringing back some movie references. But anyway, the point of that is just saying, hey, we like to have some guests on. And
eventually.
But
for right now, we'll keep pumping out the content, keep giving us feedback, and please share and subscribe, like our videos, and we'll keep pumping them out.
All right.
That was episode 2.
That's it. Thanks.